Morning guys, Corey here from Sky's the Limit Car Care, and today we're going to be talking about clay, the tools you use, and why you do it. So most people that have been around detailing for very long know a little bit about clay. You may not know all of the tips and tricks that we're going to share here, and some people might not even know what it's used for at all. So we're going to go kind of give you a full course on claying and how to do it, why you're doing it, and what the purpose is, and some of the different tools and types of clay you can use. So claying is a means of decontaminating the vehicle. These days with CarPro IronX and Tarex and all these different types of things, it's not always needed as much as it was in the past because you can spray some things on and remove it a lot easier, but it still has its place, and there are things that will not come off with any other method other than claying. Clay is what you see me holding here, and the purpose in it is to remove contaminants that are protruding above the surface of the clear coat. You might not see them, it looks like shiny paint to you, and in fact this is pretty well taken care of, so there might not be that much contaminant to it, but over time, as you're driving your vehicle down the interstate or the road, there's all kinds of things in the area around you that stick to your paint. Some of them embed in the paint. A lot of it is usually pieces of brake dust, stuff like that, so when the guy in front of you hits the brakes, those steel on steel, tiny little pieces of microscopic steel come off of those brakes, and so they're flying around on that highway when that brake happens, and some of them stick into your paint, some of them blow around the side of your vehicle and then come around, and you'll find the back of the vehicle has them stuck into it. On white paints is most noticeable, but it's actually happening on every color paint. So usually people with white cars are like, I've got a white car, and so this is why it's happening. No, it's happening to every car. It's just that on a white car, when that little tiny piece of, nearly microscopic piece of iron dust is stuck into the clear coat, once it starts rusting, then it makes a little bloom, a little spot where it starts making a little rust spot around it, and it's very visible, obviously, because white is going to show that. Whereas on black, you're not really going to see it so much. But regardless of if it's white, black, red, or purple, it is going to have an effect on your clear coat. First, it's going to start by making it so that the paint's not smooth. It'll be a lot more grabby once those pieces of brake dust and could be concrete, could be paint that somebody sprayed a house next door and some paint got on there, a little microscopic piece you might not even see, but for whatever reason, you might have some of these things that are stuck to your paint. And over time, that's going to affect the paint in a few different ways. Depending on what it is, it may damage the paint more than others. Over time, it'll allow a place for other contaminants and stuff to stick to and burrow down into the clear coat and slowly start to deteriorate the clear coat. And then other things that it's just going to do is stop your vehicle from being as hydrophobic and allowing it to get dirtier faster, because once there's something tiny stuck to the paint, then other things are going to attract to it, and that's slowly going to, that's not going to allow a smooth sealant or wax or ceramic coating or nano sealant to do its job, because there's something protruding through that nano sealant. So in order for your sealant or wax or ceramic coating or whatever type of protection you use to work properly, you need a very smooth, mechanically clean surface. One of the ways to get that is obviously the clay, for the reasons that we already discussed. And once you get that paint completely clean, that's when those types of protections are going to bond to the vehicle a lot better. So one other thing is when you go into compounding the vehicle or polishing the vehicle, actually using a machine with a polishing pad to actually level the clear coat and make it completely mechanically perfect. You don't want to have anything built up on the paint that's going to mess up your pad or make it more difficult for you to get the level of the results that you want to get with polishing and compounding. So that's another, both of those are very good, important reasons to make sure that your paint is really clean before you move on to the next process. So where does this fall in the order of detailing your car? This is not something you do every week. Depending on the vehicle, if it's not ceramic coated, then you probably do it every 6 months or so, depending obviously on the miles and all those things. Just reach out for us for more info on that if you're not sure about that. So when it is time to clay, obviously you want to wash the vehicle first, get off all the loose dirt. Otherwise, if you try to do this on a dirty car, then you're immediately going to get sand and stuff in the paint, and you're just going to be scratching it. You're literally going to turn it into a piece of sandpaper and damage your vehicle. So you want to get it as clean as you can by washing it. You can dry it, and then at that point, you're going to use a lubricant in the clay. And then after you're all done claying, the next step in the process is either you're going to use a paint cleaner or a polish or compound to get the paint in the condition that you want it, and then after that is when you put the protection on. In some cases, especially with older tech, you could wash, clay, and then just put your wax on, you know, after you wipe it down and get it really clean. But typically, these days, we want to really get the paint right, paint correction, if it needs it, if there's any swirls. So you would go, in that case, you would go wash, clay, paint correction, and then protection. So a few extra little tips on how to use clay. One, when you store it, when you're done with it, if it's still good, then you can spray a little lubricant in the bag that you're storing it in. You want to seal it up. You just spray a little of your clay lubricant inside the bag so it doesn't stick to the walls, and then you just put it in there and seal it up. One of the tips that you want to also use is make sure that you never drop your clay bar. Traditionally, depending on the size of your clay bar, you might not use the whole thing. You might break it in half like this and just use half of it, put the other, you know, keep the other part protected in there. And then if you do drop it, you haven't lost the whole thing. But if you do drop it on the ground, it's basically ruined. You should not reuse this clay if you drop it on the ground. It's going to get a grain of sand, and then every time you use it from then on, it's going to damage the paint. It's going to swirl it. So we're going to go ahead and, there's a few different lubricants you can use. You could actually just use soapy water if you wanted to. My favorite is the Ultima cleaning lubricant. The CarPro Emo Lube also works well. If you're looking to save some money, like I said, you could use soapy water or something like Echo. This is going to cost you basically nothing. If you just dilute this like 1 to 30, then it's super cheap. But even so, this is like $8. So I think it's worth it just to have something that really cleans well with the clay. So first you want to fashion your clay to make it nice and flat, have a little bit of thickness to it, but nice and flat and clean. Make sure there's nothing, no sand or anything sticking out there. And then you take your, there we go, give your product a little shake. The amount of product that you're actually going to use, if you're not sure, then use too much. It's better than using too little. You want to go ahead and lubricate the surface like that. And you can spray more on as you go. Usually I'll have my right hand with the clay bar and I'll just keep spraying this every now and then as I go. But you don't want to press down hard on the clay. If you're unsure and you're just beginning, then one little tip you might use is to literally put your palm around the bar, so it's just the weight of the bar. And that way you're not pressing into the paint at all, and you're not going to put swirls in the paint, you know, grinding on it, or, you know, micro mar the paint up. And that way you're just letting the clay kind of slide. Once you get used to it and you get a feel for, you know, what you can do without damaging, then you might just slightly hold the clay with your fingers, but you're not pressing on it. And you really just follow the contours, so you're not pressing hard on an edge and light out here. Just follow the contours, and then you can come up here and fashion that around the corner, and then just hold it around the corner like that. But you just basically slide that back and forth, take it a little bit at a time. And as you can see, my hand, I'm just dragging my hand back and forth and letting the clay slide on its own and jump back and forth between my fingers and palm. So you can see it's picked up a little bit. As it begins to pick stuff up, and before it becomes too dirty, it's important to refold the clay. So at that point you fold it in on itself like that, and then you just keep molding it until the clay looks clean again. This is still really pretty clean, so I don't really have to remold it at this point yet. If it starts to get dry at all, you just make sure to add a little more lubricant. Make sure you're never rubbing it dry. Okay, so after you have clayed the area, then you want to come back and just wipe it off with your towel, and then you can move on to the next area. A couple tips that I don't think I highlighted enough. Number one, if you drop your clay, you absolutely do not want to reuse that. The cool thing is there is some other tech out there. These are called the synthetic clay tools. And there's a place for both, but the cool thing about the synthetic clay tools with regards to that is if you drop it, you can just rinse it off with a hose, and then you can still reuse that. Where would you use this over this? It really depends on the contaminants. In some preference, you know, some people prefer clay, some people prefer synthetic, but some things will stick to this better than they will stick to clay, so this will pull them out of the paint or shave them off better than this will, and then other things this will take off better. And then in some cases you're just better off using Iron X. With these Polyshave tools, these synthetic tools here, CarPro calls them their Polyshave line. They come in a few different shapes and sizes. This one's called the Polyshave Mini Block. That one you use similarly to the clay, except for obviously it's not going to conform as well around the surface, but you can just slide it back and forth just like exactly how we were using that. This one is called the Polyshave Disc. This one has Velcro on the side. You slap that on a machine. That might not be the best tool for somebody that's brand new to claying, because you can do a little more damage to your paint if you catch a piece of sand in there while it's on a machine. That might not be the best way to go about that. But once you've become confident and you know what you're doing, you have a wide open flat area, the Polyshave Disc can come in really handy to knock out some work very quickly. The other tool, we have a lot of customers that love the Polyshave Towel. This one is flexible and you can get all around these areas very easily. And that's pretty much a quick breakdown on the Polyshave tools. So that pretty much sums up the different tools that we have available. Obviously, as we said, you either rinse and dry or wipe down the area and move on to the next. After the whole vehicle is clayed, next you move into one of two steps. Either one, you're going to want to protect the vehicle, or two, you're going to, if you're going to do paint correction and get the car really perfect, if it's not already, then you're going to do a polish or a compound with a dual action polisher. If you're going to protect it, then at this point you could just wipe it down with some CarPro eraser just to make sure you didn't leave any lubricants on the surface, and then you could put your wax or your sealant on it. If you're going to put a ceramic coating on it, then at this point we would go ahead and polish it if it only needed a polish, which is a lighter abrasive compound, or compound it if it needed more work. And then after that you would do the eraser and then put on your ceramic coating or nano sealant. So that's going to sum it up for today. Make sure that if you are not subscribed, that you do subscribe. If you are subscribed, make sure to hit the notification bar. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those. We do upload our YouTube videos every Thursday, so keep an eye out for the next one, and we really appreciate you watching. Any links that you need for purchasing these products are shown below, and we look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.